Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So, welcome to today's session, Strengthening the EU Clinical Research Ecosystem. I hope that some of you, at least, if not all of you, were in the previous session, because one of the things they talked about in the previous session, in the plenary session, and somebody said that, was how important EU clinical trials research ecosystem is for us. So we're going to have the opportunity to deep dive on that. Let me start by saying my name is Pilar Aguar. I am the director in the DG Research and Innovation for People, Health and Society. So, as said, clinical research is really the backbone for developing new therapies and new medical solutions. And as the healthcare landscape evolves, there is a really strong need for Europe to reinforce this part of its research, because the clinical research ecosystem must advance, and we must advance towards a single market. It has never been more crucial to enhance our clinical research infrastructures. So we are committed, we, the European Union, we are committed to use Horizon Europe program to support these clinical trials and really to empower research and institutions for that purpose. As part of this commitment, as I said, it was just mentioned in the plenary session, there was a presentation on a really important thing, the strategy for European life science that has been adopted in July this year. And in it, one of the flagship initiatives there is the Clinical Research Investment Plan. So this is intended to facilitate multi-country clinical trials, of course in compliance with competition rules, but to further develop and streamline the European research infrastructure in this field. But before diving into the topic of the day and exploring together key initiatives or policies or opportunities, I have the pleasure to introduce the esteemed panel members that are sitting with me here. So I'd like you to welcome our expert today, Dr. Michael Makanga. He is the Executive Director of the European Developing Countries Clinical Trial Partnership on Global Health. Many of you have heard of that. We use this EDCTP3 acronym. Professor Evelina Tacconelli, who's a professor and a well-distinguished, well-known researcher on infectious diseases at the University of Verona. And Isaac Middleman, who is the Director for Strategic Fundraising in the European Institute for Innovation and Technology on the Health Accelerator. So these are our guests today, and I think I just go ahead and ask you questions, because we will all benefit from your expertise. So I'll start with you, Evelina, if it is all right. Please, Evelina, what is, in your view, the current state of play of the European clinical research ecosystem, and specifically seeing your field of expertise on pandemic preparedness and response? And how have you seen this evolve since COVID-19?
So good morning. First of all, let me thank the European Commission for this invitation. I think there is no doubt that COVID-19 has deeply reshaped the European clinical research ecosystem in terms of funding mechanism and priorities. First, we saw substantial resources mobilized to pandemic preparedness and digital innovation, with artificial intelligence being implemented in all phases of pandemic research, from patients' recruitment to drug discovery. Second, several networks, multidisciplinary and multi-country networks and boards were implemented. Usually it takes years to build these boards, but thanks to the European Commission, this was done during pandemic in weeks. And some of these boards, like the Cohort Coordination Board, the Trial Coordination Board, proved not only to be effective for European response, but also, as today, they are sustainable. Third, and most important, several investments were done in terms of research infrastructure. ECRAID was the first one, and then Europe Finance, EU Response, EU PROACT, and Pipeline among the latest. And this infrastructure introduced innovative design for pandemic preparedness, like adaptive platform trial. And the ones like CRADE, REMAP-CAP, which were active during pandemic, proved that these infrastructure are essential to provide sound evidence for therapeutic guidelines. We have seen, indeed, limitation. There was a huge, and there is still a huge heterogeneity in data sharing across European projects, and less experienced countries, they have less opportunities to join this project or to coordinate. So I would say Europe stands stronger and more connected than before COVID-19, but we must ensure we need to reduce fragmentation, and we must increase inclusiveness in order to have a European response.
Thank you, Evelina. I have a question, a follow-up question. And in what ways have you contributed to this European clinical research ecosystem, and what do you think that is needed for further improvement?
So we really redesigned clinical research agenda during the COVID pandemic at 4 levels. We moved from national to international European infrastructures. We connected hospital with community research center. We open up our collaboration to non-European countries, in particular low and medium income countries. And we also try to work more with other disciplines beyond infectious disease. So thanks to the European funding, we created the first syndromic cohort for fragile population. In particular, important were the transplantation and hemato-oncological cohort, for example, for the development of antibiotic or more for pandemic preparedness for vaccine policy at country level. And we develop also syndromic cohort for healthcare workers. And these are the most achievable and healthy control, but with high risk during pandemic. I think there are several points we can make in terms of request. We need more coordination between member states and European Commission, because I think it's impossible today to speak about sustainable pandemic program without clear funding program from member states. We need Europe to create a network of clinical sites which are legally and scientifically able to be reactivated in a few days in case of pandemic. We need dedicated track for fragile population and long-term care facilities. And at last, but not least point, probably we need more education to teach not only the scientific community, but also the community at large about the importance of research in pandemic time.
Thank you very much, Evelina. Let me now turn to Michael. Please, Michael, what are the lessons that can be drawn from the continuous evolving African landscape and the EU-African Union partnership? And how could this help strengthen the European clinical research ecosystem?
Thank you very much, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Here, the European partnerships, like the joint undertakings, play a very critical role. And allow me to highlight five areas that have concrete examples. First is boosting Europe's scientific leadership and excellence. In this case, the Global Health EDCP3 aligns with Europe's ambition to advance scientific excellence and global competitiveness by driving innovations and breakthrough in health research. And in this case, over 60% when we look at our research portfolio of products in development are coming from the European research area. And the program has helped to develop and implement at least 8 products that are out there reaching the people that need them most. Giving an example of the first two malaria vaccines, the first fixed dose combination antiretrovirus, products that are used in treatment of children with schistosomiasis, as well as soil-transmitted helminths. Secondly, leveraging digital technologies and societal impact as well as economic security. By embracing cutting-edge digital technologies, including artificial intelligence, as well as other digital interventions, the program has helped to implement faster and more efficient solutions for solving societal challenges and strengthening Europe's position in digital innovation and complementary areas of energy technologies and advanced materials. And here I want to be very concrete. For example, the virtual assessment tool for microscopic examinations of parasites. This has been developed in collaboration with the European Organization for External Quality Control Assurance providers in laboratory medicine. The third area is fostering global and cross-sector partnerships. Here we showcase how Europe can achieve more by forming mutually beneficial global and intersectoral partnerships. Through this program, working with development partners and also working with established large pharmaceutical companies and small and medium enterprises, at the moment, 394 entities from 64 different countries, including 40 SMEs and 71 for-profit private entities, are helping to develop products. And here, moving on fourthly, very quickly, is strengthening Europe's health security and crisis resilience. We have helped in 3 epidemics: COVID-19 pandemic, Ebola outbreak, and more recently, the Mpox response. And this has happened in a very small space of time. Moreover, the detection of Mpox was through a consortium that we set up for genomic surveillance, and this identified or detected clade 1b of Mpox, and also the PCR test that is helpful to identify this. Lastly, and not the least, I want to highlight the role of advancing Europe's commitment to global solidarity. And this is in the spirit of strengthening the clinical trials ecosystem, recognizing that this is a shared responsibility between Europe and Africa, and the largest intercontinental program that is supporting this is actually supported by Europe. And this is where we really need to galvanize this. And when we support ongoing research work, then we prepare and we're more ready to respond to outbreaks.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you a lot. Isaac, with your hat of strategic fundraising in the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, the Health Accelerator, how does the EIT Health plan to support and incentivize innovative technologies, particularly, of course, in the field of clinical research, to stimulate the competitive edge in Europe of the health sector?
Well, thanks for the question and for the invitation. You use the word competition, and when you say competition, I immediately think of a race. And I think we all would agree, at least on this panel and in the room, that it's critical that Europe run that race and that it win that race. But if we think about that, we need to be making sure, therefore, that we are competing in the right type of competition to start with. And the right kind of competition requires having the same values, the same structural factors, and making the right public investments to ensure that that race is a fair one, and that it also ensures that the winners of it are determined by shared values of addressing unmet patient need, but also unmet market appetite in order to help pull those life-changing innovations into the market at scale over time in and for Europe and our economies and our job creation and our resiliency as a whole, as the other panelists have said. So in reference to the much discussed Letta and Draghi reports and so much of what we've heard here, I want to be crystal clear that one of our main actions and positions on this topic is the full support of this truly integrated single market for innovation and healthcare that goes beyond the current healthcare paradigms. and that includes ensuring the competitiveness of the European health ecosystem through multi-country trials and recognition of trials in a European ecosystem that is a truly equitable and flat one. That allows us to increase the efficiency. It allows us to reduce the time to market and patience of the innovation, and ultimately it helps us ensure that Europe is not just the source of high-quality research and innovation, but that it's also a place where global healthcare challenges can be truly addressed equitably and in ways that are aligned with our shared values as citizens and as patients in the ecosystem. So what do we need in order to achieve that true single market integration and multi-country trials? We need the implementation of successful pilots that can create the proof points that multiple stakeholders from multiple countries, multiple regulators can truly work together and acknowledge the validity of these trials across borders. To do that, we need to harmonize research endpoints and ethical committee approvals. If we don't agree on what to measure and what a good answer to a question is, we cannot agree on an outcome that is shared and on what validation looks like. And finally, if we build on these, we can move towards the mutual recognition of clinical trials conducted in the EU countries as a means of fast-tracking the regulatory approval processes, which is ultimately what is necessary to ensuring that patients can benefit from that in their care pathway. That's fully aligned with the need in the EU and our values, as I've been saying. But to do that, we need all of these different stakeholders from hospitals, from industry, from private investors to work together and come together to blend the public and private financing landscape to provide as quick and smooth, and as we all know, health innovation is never quick and never smooth, but to move in that direction in order to co-fund between public and private this clinical research, clinical trials, clinical validation, and eventually market access. So at EIT Health, with our wide network of 100 or so partners, we have several activities in this space, ranging from our participation, for example, in the European Partnership for Personalized Medicine, which is aligning national and regional funding for research in personalized medicine, and then our open innovation programs, which is where I'll end today, where we have a decade-long track record of working between academic research institutions, hospitals, national health bodies, and industry to co-fund in a public and private manner clinical trials and clinical validation in hospitals in the member states, and then extrapolating from those results in one member state, endpoints that can be acknowledged and picked up upon by others. That's not a single multi-country clinical trial, it's not, but it's a required first step as a pilot that proves that these stakeholders can work together. And we will continue rolling it out moving forward.
Thank you, Isaac. You just said something quite interesting, that indeed health innovation is never fast and never smooth, but we are, I think, all of us committed to do it faster and smoother. And that's our objective of not only of today, but I think that the overall life science strategy is one of the objectives of that strategy. I have a question, a final question to all of you. So please, if I could ask you to prioritize one single action from the European Commission where we should focus during the next year in the field of research and innovation to really make the most or the biggest impact to strengthen the EU clinical research ecosystem. So if you would think of one single action, what would that be?
Yeah, thank you very much. In my personal view, the one action to prioritize would be to take forward integration of clinical trial networks within health systems, supported at both EU level and through initiatives such as the Global Health EDISP-3, the Innovative Health Initiative in Europe as well. And in this case, these would support ongoing endemic use of clinical trials, which represent Europe, and in this case, Africa's key clinical research capacity priorities. And these can be pivoted during times of emergency. And moreover, application of innovative approaches, including AI, and digitalization will help to make this a reality.
Thank you, Michael. Evelina?
Yeah, I know very well what I want. So I want the European Commission to work in implementing research infrastructure for pandemic preparedness. And I want European Commission to work to ensure that member states commit funding for pandemic preparedness. Because without infrastructures, we do not have any research. And without the contribution of all member states, we do not have equity. And without equity, we do not have any preparedness.
Thank you, Evelina. Isaac?
Boiling it down is always hard. So I would say, and the message in the opening keynotes from European Commission President and others yesterday affirmed this as well, and that was good to hear. I would like to see a real posturing of the European ecosystem funded by the Commission to take ownership of what it is that we have jointly built over the past 40, 50 years together, which is a realization that none of our individual markets or funders are sufficient to tackle these challenges alone, and that we have decades-long experience now building multi-stakeholder, public-privately funded initiatives in health innovation, that in this current geopolitical context and in the current challenges of the world are a real asset. And so we should be deploying our ability to work with each other to bring in the best and the brightest on a truly global basis, to create positive economic and innovation spillover effect in the European ecosystem. And we should dare, and I say this provocatively, we should dare to truly lead in that space. We should dare to communicate our buy-in to those values. We should dare to fund truly in a public way those initiatives. And we should realize that it's in merging that public funding stream with private sector funding from investors, from industry, from others, that we have the best chance of realizing and leveling up our European community when it comes to innovation.
Wow, quite a lot of ideas. Well, we're about to start wrapping up, but I really don't want this session to finish. I have to say, I find it really interesting. So, unfortunately, time is what it is. So, as we're wrapping up, let's take a moment to really appreciate all the exciting ideas that we have been provided by our panelists. I think really, maybe I just really have heard a lot of things: shared, harmonized, sustainable, integration, EU-MS cooperation, pandemic preparedness, and global partnerships. A lot of interesting ideas. But if I can maybe go through some of the points you have in common and repeat it. We have heard from these experts, and I think that you really are hitting the nail, that it's important that we build strong and adaptable research infrastructures that are really important for us, our success. That we need sustainable investment in clinical research, because this is essential for driving innovation and bolstering Europe's scientific competitiveness, but not only in Europe, but beyond. You've also said that there is a certain need for investment in digital innovation, as these will revolutionize or make better design studies and recruiting patients. But not only that, we must at all costs ensure interoperability and standardization for data sharing, because this will really facilitate to conduct the multi-country clinical trials. We've also heard that we need to collaborate. We need to cooperate with member states, but we need to collaborate across borders and establish global partnerships, because these will be essential for us in Europe to be ready and have a united front against health crisis. So I've also heard, and it's been mentioned by a couple of you, that we need to expand the research networks to guarantee equal opportunities and readiness for everyone that most need it. So, and that the integration of clinical trials with the national systems, the health systems, it's going to be a must so we can support these networks, then really can facilitate continuous and adaptive use of trials. So really those are the things that I take with me as kind of take-home lesson and somehow take-home homework. So I hope that you are as excited as I have been with this session. I really think that we need to support these ideas. Each of us can make a difference if we really support these ideas within our spheres of influence. I think that it is just the beginning. As I said, the Life Sciences Strategies, which is calling for this clinical trials investment fund, has just been adopted. So this was only the beginning of our path. We will now certainly spend time looking into how to properly implement it. And I would like to see that these ideas you have shared with us are used and are explored in future discussions, because this is the ultimate goal, to strengthen the EU clinical research ecosystem. And also quite important, mentioned, and I will repeat it again, the ecosystem needs to be dynamic and needs to be inclusive. And this is those are important factors to promise the EU citizens and beyond the EU citizens that they will reach, that the innovation will reach everyone. And at the same time, we want to do everything to improve the EU competitiveness. So again, I think that together we can make use of this collective expertise to bring a brighter future for the clinical research in Europe. And I thank you all, but particularly our experts, for the valuable contributions of today. Could you please give them a really big applause, because they really have deserved it. Thank you, everyone, for being here today with us. And, well, please enjoy the rest of the sessions in the RNA days. Thank you.